Earlier, we discussed several theories for why angiosperms are so predominant in nature. They circulate water efficiently, and as a result, they can photosynthesize and gobble up nutrients easily, and their flowers are pollinated using a variety of strategies. Angiosperms may also have undergone a doubling of their DNA, or genome, early on in their evolution, producing robust plants with a lot of genetic diversity and hence the ability to adapt and evolve in a variety of environmental situations. Any and all of these explanations could apply. In truth, we may never actually know all the reasons why angiosperms are so diverse, as the fossil record needed to document their evolution is incomplete and gives us only fragmentary glimpses into the long history of plants. But there may be one other reason why angiosperms are successful. Consider the endosperm. Recall that in the process of double fertilization, which is unique to angiosperms, one sperm nucleus fuses with two polar nuclei to form a triploid endosperm. It's that endosperm that provides nutrients to the growing embryo, giving it a head start in the world. We humans relish the rich endosperm tissue produced by many crop species. The composition of endosperm varies among species. Many of the nuts we wolf down during football games, such as peanuts, cashews, and walnuts, as well as our favorite spices, such as mustard, are rich in oils. Other seeds, such as corn, rice, beans, and peas, contain more starchy endosperm. Endosperm is as nutritional for us as it is for the plant embryo. Now, not all angiosperm seeds contain enormous amounts of endosperm, but the important point is that other types of plants such as gymnosperms, remember, naked seeds, and ferns, no seeds, just spores, don't produce any endosperm at all. Could it be that the evolution of this nutritive material has given angiosperm offspring a certain advantage in the wild? Now, many ecological studies have shown that bigger seeds with more endosperm tend to give rise to bigger, more vigorous, and fast-growing seedlings. And a happy mom produces happy seeds. Even within a given plant species or population, the embryos in small seeds produced by stressed plants don't fare as well as their fatter counterparts. So sometimes when a maternal plant has to weather drought or lack of nutrients and other stresses, it will allocate more of its precious resources to a few better endowed fruits and seeds, allowing other seeds to abort. And we humans sometimes manually help the mother plant to select for a few well-provisioned offspring. For example, I pick off 2/3 of the hundreds of young peaches produced by my peach trees in early in the season when they're just the size of lima beans. This ensures that I get a bushel of big, succulent peaches rather than a metric ton of tiny fruits. Endosperm doesn't just provide nutrients to the embryo. It's chock full of plant hormones, light-sensitive pigments, and other chemicals that regulate the growth and maturation of that embryo before and even after the seed separates from the mother plant. Endosperm is a maternal tissue, with the majority of its genes coming from maternal DNA. Thus, botanists recognize endosperm as an important part of what we call maternal effects, the many ways in which the mother plant provides for and influences the growth and eventual success of her offspring. The cellular engines that operate in the cells of the growing embryo, such as mitochondria and chloroplasts, are also inherited directly from the mother plant inside the egg, not from the paternal nucleus that fertilized that egg. So in addition to the maternal genes in the nucleus of the embryo seeds, there's more maternal DNA inside the cellular organelles as well as in the endosperm. This means that the embryo is profoundly influenced at the early stages of its life by several different types of maternal effects. Also, the tissues surrounding the embryo and the endosperm, those that form the seed coat, are entirely supplied by the mother plant, derived from the ovule. When the embryo is mature, it needs to burst the bounds of its own seed coat, much as a baby chick pecks its way out of its egg. The hardness and thickness of the seed coat, also known as the testa, influence how easily the embryo can germinate in response to environmental cues such as light and water. Many seeds with thick, resistant testes cannot germinate until they've been through a winter in our climate. Indeed, some may have to persist for years in the soil until conditions cause the testa to soften or crack so that the germinating seedling can finally break free. Other seeds need to be digested by an animal before they can germinate. Animals carrying off the seeds can disperse them far from the mother plant. It's good to get the kids out from underfoot so that mother and offspring don't end up competing for local resources. But what happens if a seed lands in a place that's very different from the environment to which the mother plant was adapted? Even with a head start from the endosperm, a plantlet striking out on its own is still influenced by the genes it inherited from mom, so it may not be able to respond very flexibly to novel conditions. So there are trade-offs, some good, some less good, involved in maternal effects. Maternal effects can also influence which seeds germinate when. Sometimes the seeds produced early in the growing season on a mother plant will be primed to germinate and grow into new plantlets during that same season. Others, produced later, will have different complements of hormones provided by the mother plant, which will induce them to go dormant over winter and germinate in the following year. So, in what other ways does one generation of plants provide for a new generation of offspring? Well, many plant species actually make only partial use of sexual reproduction and instead dedicate their resources toward producing identical plantlets arrayed along a stolon, which is a horizontal above-ground stem, or a rhizome, which is a horizontal underground stem. These plantlets aren't seedlings. Instead, we call them ramets, and the whole colony of genetically similar attached plants is called a genet. The mother ramet sends nutrients along those stem connections to the next generation of growing ramets, which in turn will provide for the grandchildren in similar ways. Some of the plants we love to hate, like the invasive common reed, Phragmites australis, produce both ramets along rhizomes and seeds. Plants have certainly figured out ways to reproduce that are much more diverse than our single-minded human strategy. There is one other way in which one generation of plants can lend a helping hand, or a stem, to a new generation of plants, even in death, and even if those younger plants are of different species. When a tree falls in a forest, with or without anyone to hear it, its prostrate log provides new habitat to be colonized by a host of other organisms, including fungi and mosses and liverworts and vascular plants. This is called a nurse log, and we can find many examples of them as we wander our northeastern forests. Seeds rain down from above onto the surface of these nurse logs, and the roots of germinating seedlings probe the nooks and crannies of bark to gain a foothold. Growing well above the forest floor, these seedlings can take advantage of light that they may not have been able to access were they buried in the deep shade of the forest floor. Sometimes you'll encounter a tree that appears to have stilt roots arching above empty space, well above the soil surface. Chances are that tree got its start on a nurse log, which has since decayed and crumbled away. Eventually, perhaps that same tree will fall over and provide a home for a whole new generation of plants. Maternal plants and nurse logs, yet another way in which plants provide for younger plants, much as we humans care for our kids.